views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect the policies and the position of Now You Know.
Good evening and welcome to Viewpoint. Together with experts and newsmakers, we'll make sense of the week's biggest issues and stories. I'm Barnaby Lo. In tonight's conversation,
Facebook pages and accounts supportive of Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte and his administration have suffered a major blow after the company removed more than 100 of them for coordinated inauthentic behavior. A number of fake accounts were traced to China and to the Philippine police and military, though the government denies any official role. Earlier this week, Duterte lashed out at Facebook, his spokesperson Harry Roque following up by accusing Facebook of censorship. Senator Bato de la Rosa, a former police chief who led Duterte's drug war, has gone further to say that the takedown of the accounts, some of which explicitly red-tagged activists and government critics, can affect peace and security, and has called for a legislative inquiry.
all right, to help us understand what's behind the takedown of Facebook of pages and accounts apparently linked to the government and to pro-Duterte supporters, we have three experts in the field of digital rights as well as in the field of media. First, joining us by Skype, University of the Philippines College of Marketing and Head of Marketing. Let's welcome Labiste.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here.
All right. Now next, also joining us via Skype is journalist and currently the head of research and strategy at Rappler, Ms. Gemma Mendoza. Good evening, Gemma.
Hello, good evening.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And of course, last but not the least, to talk to us about the technicalities of Facebook's recent actions is a digital rights advocate, advocacy and communication director of EngageMedia, Mr. Red Tani. Evening, Red. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So welcome to our viewers as well. We have a lot to tackle. Of course, this is a very relevant and timely issue. The actions that have been taken by Facebook happened just very recently. It was just at the end of September, and then yung reaction ng gobyerno natin, and particularly from President Duterte, actually early this week lang, ano? So, very timely and very relevant. Pero I think you would all agree na medyo mahirap intindihin para sa mga ordinaryong Pilipino kung ano ba talaga yung nangyayari kasi medyo muddled din siya, no? So let's help them understand, you know. Unang-una yung mga, I think mag-start tayo dun sa definition ng mga basic terms dito sa issue na to kasi baka hindi rin nila masyado naiintindihan kung ano yung difference ng mga terms na ito, no? So I want to start yung sa pinaka-basic. Kasi nadidinig natin disinformation, misinformation, fake news, and then yung coordinated inauthentic behavior. So, ano-ano ba yung definition sa mga ito? Ano yung differences? Siguro mag-start tayo kay Gemma.
Okay. So, misinformation, Barn, bali, lahat naman tayo, di ba, nagkakamali. So, minsan, yung, sabihin natin, I wasn't sure about it, and then I said it, and then turned out hindi totoo yun, that's misinformation. Dahil hindi ko naman sinadya, and then, pag may ganong instances na nagkakamali ka, ang advice doon, i-correct mo. So, that's misinformation. Pero, yung disinformation, medyo a step higher kasi ang ano nun, ang pinaka ugat nun is sinasadya. Yung mali na nga, sinadyam na ikinalat yung maling information. So that means na bali and normally kami Rappler is a fact check partner of Facebook. Mapapansin mo na when we call out pages like that, ang nangyayari is hindi sila nagko-correct. As in they stand by, they attack you pa for saying that this is parang walang admission na mali siya. Yung ganon. Now, yung
Importante intent.
inauthentic or may intent. So there's really intent. Sinadya siya. Hindi siya yung nagkamali lang, hindi siya yung tipong hindi ko lang na-verify tong sinadya siya at hindi pinapangatawanan siya madalas ng mga So that's number 2. Yung inauthentic coordinated behavior, naghahanap ako ng kapareho niyan sa natin, sa lingwahe natin. And the nearest I can connect it to is yung budol-budol. Yung yung budol-budol, 'di ba? The way it works is may isang maglalapit sa iyo, magbibigay ng offer, 'di ba? Na with certain claims. Tapos yung offer na 'yon, may habang nag-uusap kayo, may iba pang lalapit sa iyo na parang nag-agree with the first person who offered you that who approached you. So nagmumukhang nagkakaroon ng consensus na this is a good idea, 'di ba? Yung ganon. So medyo scale down 'yon and nakita namin 'yon doon sa early parts of our research. Yung makikita mo talagang it looked like nag-uusap-usap sila pero actually iisa lang yung nagha-handle ng lahat ng accounts na 'yon. So we call that may another term for that, sock puppet network. May isang tao lang actually nagha-handle or maybe multiple people pero that's different. Maraming yun. So ngayon i-scale up mo 'yon, yung i-scale up mo 'yan na parang isipin mong libo-libo 'yan, isang yan. Yan na yung tinatawag na inauthentic coordinated behavior. And also there's a term that they use for this, astroturfing. And the point of that is to show na may grassroots support for a particular idea, for a particular thing. Ganon.
So red,
I hope that
kumbaga fake yung engagement.
Oo, merong mapanlin lang katulad nga nung sinasabi dito, no. Hindi to ganoon kasimple dahil madami pang ibang terms na hindi pa tayo na-mention katulad kunyari ng malinformation, iba pa 'yon. Yung malinformation naman, ito yung totoong impormasyon pero ginagamit para maka-harm o manggatong sa away na nangyayari na kunyari. Meron ding mga misleading na information. So pag tinignan mo, hindi naman siya mukhang disinformation o misinformation, pero yung pagkasabi, misleading siya. Meron naman yung mga expression na napaka-biased. So technically, totoo lahat ng sinasabi, pero klarong may bias. And syempre, meron ding mga satire naman. So iba pa yon, nakakalito talaga dahil ang dami ng iba-ibang mga hindi totoo na nakapublish online. And yung iba dito, malicious. Yung iba hindi naman malicious, no? Pero yung intent or yung malice, hindi ito tinitignan ng Facebook eh. Ang tinitignan nila dito ay kung meron bang katulad nga nung sinabi ni Gemma, yung astroturfing or may botnet, yung sock puppet network na tinatawag. And yung mga kabilang dito, maaaring mga totoong tao sila, so mga paid troll, maaaring mga voluntary troll sila, mga hindi naman sila binabayaran, talagang volunteer lang silang sumasali dito sa coordinated behavior na to. At meron din ditong mga bots or mga AI. Hindi to mga tao, mga computer lang to na gumagamit ng madaming fake account. And ang nagre-resulta dito, katulad nga nung sinabi ni Gemma, yung budol-budol, akala natin madaming mga tao na may isang opinion, pero ayun pala, maliit na network lang to na coordinated na gumagawa nitong mga activity na to. At ito ay labag sa policy ng Facebook.
Okay. So yung coordinated inauthentic behavior, Ma'am Diosa, yun lang yung tinitingnan ng Facebook, pero kayo po yung advocacy nyo is hindi po ba sa disinformation? So, I mean, ano ba yung mas cause for concern para sa inyo?
Let me try to join the conversation. Yung ano ba talaga yung coordinated, yung authentic behavior. According to Facebook, ito yung social media, may platform sila na may commitment sila sa authenticity. Dini-discourage nila yung deception. Yung coordinated and authentic behavior is defined as the use of multiple accounts na tinatawag ng Facebook na assets. And these accounts are working to mislead people. Ang actions nito ay ginagawa on behalf of certain actors like the government, for example, or yung powerful individuals. Kasi ang sabi nga ni Red kanina, yung coordinated and authentic behavior, tinitingnan ng Facebook na maingat din sila because they don't want to tread on free expression issues or censor anyone on the basis of his or her beliefs. Pero surprising itong takedown na ito kasi it involves posts not just on the basis of bots or coordinated na behavior like viral posting or massive distribution of certain posts. But nakikita ko din yung systematic and massive operations ng military to vilify and red tag activists. And then nakikita ng Facebook na meron ding part ang content or the language that was used. Kasi yung how did they analyze the post, they also use content analysis. Nakikinita nila yung mga objectionable pages na nag-engage sila ng red tagging and demonizing of individuals and groups in the Philippines. So, in other words, na-expand na yung behavior, not just on the basis of the actions of some groups or individuals, pero they're starting to analyze the content also and the language that's being used because they might constitute harm. At saka maingat din sila, tinitingnan nila what is going on in those pages and posts and assets that we call it. Ano ba yung nangyayari? What are the effects and what is likely to happen if this would continue?
Gemma, can you confirm this, because Rappler, of course, is a fact checker of Facebook. So, can you confirm na hindi lang coordinated inauthentic behavior yung tiningnan ng Facebook dito sa recent actions nila, dito sa pag-take down nitong more than 100 pages and accounts? And I think hindi lang sa Facebook, I think kasama na dun yung sa Instagram. And sinasabi nga na may mga networks linked to China and then also the Philippine government, in particular the military and police.
So umpisahan ko lang dun sa So first, yung fact checking itself kasi medyo recently sinabi ni Harry Roque, like right after the president's statement, siya na tinira niya yung mga fact check partners ng Facebook for this, and Rappler happens to be one of the fact check partners of Facebook. Ang fact-checking itself, yung pagre-rate ng mga fact-checkers dun sa mga posts, hindi yun yung ginagawang rason for takedowns. Kasi lang yun, ang ginagawa lang nila doon, dina-downgrade nila yung mga posts. But they do have a policy on disinformation that leads to harm. And that was actually the subject of our investigation when we did the story on the police-sponsored pages. So nag-umpisa to kasi, Barn, we were looking at these deluge of claims against Sara Elago, yung kabataan party list Sara Elago. Well, there were also other mga activists and in mga opposition figures that were vilified and that medyo tinarget ng mga false claims. Pero napaka-particular nung mga claims tungkol kay Sara. Like may point doon na may COVID daw siya, may point na merong yung namundok daw siya, at yung dahil sa anibersaryo daw ng NPA and so on. Pero actually may hiking trip lang, and in fact may tweet nga about it. So parang tweet pa nga ni Sarah yung source nung kanyang nung nung claim. So like paulit-ulit ng ilang buwan naming binantayan yan na ang dami-dami nun. And then ang isa pang napansin namin, sometime in April, merong lumabas na post na isang tao, isang account, pero may screenshot siya ng isang post ng isang police page. So actually, we weren't looking at the military. We were looking at the police kasi napansin namin yung police, yung mga pages ng police, it appeared na they were amplifying these pages naman na hindi namin kilala yung mga hindi mo kilala kung sino yung behind them, walang contact details, walang nakalagay na sino ba yung administrator nito, anong organisasyon ba to. Hindi nakalagay yon sa dun sa page. Pero grabe yung mga pinopost na mga ganitong mga claims. So tiningnan namin yun ni network namin, nakita namin talagang siya, as in sobrang pervasive siya. Tapos it seemed na ang nakakapagtaka noon, nandun pa siya sa FOI report ng police. So parang kilala nila tong mga pages na to. So it's not like it's not like they were just parang official, kumbaga may official sanction na i-share itong pages na to. So takang-taka kami.
Nakita yung evidence na government link.
So but our story was actually titled Police-Sponsored Pages more because we weren't sure for this particular network na may connect siya sa military. So, nung tiningnan namin siya, medyo ninuance namin siya to that extent. Ngayon, because we are aware that Facebook has a policy on disinformation that leads to harm and violence. And 'di ba, ang daming may ilang mga aktivista, mga leaders ng cause-oriented groups na pinatay recently, 'di ba? So nakakabahala. And we asked Facebook, of course, before we released the story, we asked Facebook for comment. Ang sabi nila, we do not allow people to make credible threats of violence, bully or harass or mock the premature death of others, and we remove this content when we're made aware of it. So, isa yon. And in fact, one of the pages, inano na siya, as in, nagkaroon na siya ng warning, in fact. Ngayon, nung binigay namin sa kanila, nung humingi kami sa kanila ng comment, hiningi nila yung data. And binigay namin sa kanila yung data. And nabigla rin kami na nung lumabas na ang people pala, yung mga tao palang behind these pages were military. We didn't know. You wouldn't have known it from the pages themselves because hindi naman nagsasabi yung page na militar siya, na militar yung tao behind that. And it's important to note this, bihirang mag-name ang Facebook ng tao, ng individual sa mga takedowns nila. The one time that they did it for a takedown in the Philippines, the first takedown, wala silang pinangalanan. Yung pangalawang takedown, they mentioned Twinmark, yung company na Pero yung isang takedown na before the elections, that was the network of Nick Gabonada. The reason why they named him he was among an admin of those pages, a few of those pages apparently. So yung yung fact na may pinangalanan ng Facebook and it's not visible from open source research na nandun yung mga taong yun. That means na probably the data was visible to Facebook because Facebook owns the platform. Diba? So yun yung isang dapat na malinaw dito. This is information that Facebook uncovered. Okay, not the third party fact. Not to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Red. From an IT point of view, you agree, and you see all these evidence also linking these pages and accounts to the government.
Yes, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think one of the things that we haven't mentioned yet is that the majority of the fake accounts that was uncovered recently were not the ones linked to the military or the police. It was the ones linked to China. So there was a lot of coordinated inauthentic behavior, yung mga activity na nanggagaling sa China, 155 accounts, 11 pages, 9 groups. And ito yung mga account na nag-originate sa China, sinusubukan pa nilang magtago behind VPNs pero nahuli sila ng Facebook. At yung mga pinag-uusapan nila, bukod sa pagsuporta kay Pangulong Duterte at saka kay Sara Duterte sa potential election run niya, meron din silang mga sinasabi about the West Philippine Sea, meron din silang mga sinasabi about yung US, pro and anti. So, hindi lang yung issue dito yung military and yung red tagging. Meron actually coordinated inauthentic behavior na galing sa China mismo na nagsusubok mag-impluwensya ng mga ibang issue katulad na lang ng susunod na elections and pati na rin yung West Philippine Sea na issue.
How alarming is this for you, Professor Diosa, yung China involvement?
Hindi ako masyado expert sa global politics, but I would like to point out siguro yung effects ng coordinated inauthentic behavior overall. Kasi marami mga tao na kumukuha, they get their news from Facebook. Thus, they are susceptible sa mga kasinungalingan na pumapasok or manipulation na pumapasok sa kanilang news feeds. Yung ginagawa ng mga operators na to by boosting the stories or posts and distribute them to wide networks of trolls, bots, and supporters, yung mga posts na yun would then gather attention and makakuha sila ng mga shares, ng likes, and would deceive people, a lot of people, kasi akala ng mga tao kasi massively distributed siya, marami na nag-share, they might be true. And I think there are three ways ng yung negative effects ng coordinated inauthentic behavior sa overall information landscape or ecosystem natin. Una is may threat sa mga buhay or life na mga taong lives ng mga taong pinangalanan, especially those who are red tag. Second is it undermines democracy. Kasi yung democracy naman is a social guarantee na you can criticize the government or hold powerful persons or officials to account. And then yung pangatlo is yung takot. Yung sa takot ng mga tao na magsalita, this would lead to disengagement in politics or social life. And self-censorship kasi takot sila. Ito yung nakikita kong effects, which is not really good for the Philippines or any society for that matter. So, yun,
Pero yung
general
government
effects.
nagsasabi na sila yung nasa-censor.
Well, the thing is, sino ba yung may capacity to censor? Wala namang capacity yung mga tao to censor themselves. They are even threatened to not to say something against the government. Now, yung cry ng government na sila yung victim, I think that's not true. Who has the advantage or the position to intimidate, suppress free expression, and to censor? Wala naman sa mga tao, wala sa atin. Kasi we want the...
I want to say something, because presidential spokesperson, Secretary Harry Roque, said that Facebook is essentially censoring the government and its advocacies.
Facebook stop inauthentic coordinated behavior.
Yeah.
Iba yung usapin na 'yon. Ang medyo kailangan nating hinto i-klaro to. Ang tinigil ng Facebook yung pag-violate ng kanilang community guidelines which included the use of these techniques, yung inauthentic coordinated behavior nga. Ang laki ng difference ng advocacy sa advocacy tsaka yung mga ginagawa nitong mga accounts na to, but Facebook in fact was pointing out na hindi yun yung pinaka basis. Ang basis is because they used all these techniques, and ang nakakapagtaka lang dito sa mga statements na to ng mga government officials was that parang in effect, sinasabi nilang policy policy ba ng government yung mag-lie? Policy ba ng government yung gumamit ng mga mag-red tag at mag-spread ng false claims, mag-spread ng claims na itong kinatawan na ito ng kabataang party list ay may COVID? Policy ba nila yon? And yan ba ay kailangang i-defend ng gobyerno? Yun yung nakakapagtaka. And I want to stress this, Barn. Nung umpisa, when first in-interview namin ang police, kasi our story, before it came out, we asked the police. Sabi nila, hindi namin to policy, we don't condone this, may policy kami na, may social media guidelines sila. And violation to ng social media guidelines nila. Nung unang lumabas yung balita, ang sabi ng army ay ng militar, sabi nila, hindi naman namin pages 'yan. Kumbaga, and we don't tolerate that kind of behavior also. Then later in the day, they about face nung na-realize nila, and this is looking like this is their cyber operations. Diba? So parang medyo nakakapagtaka talaga na na dinidefend nila ito na policy ba ito, na parang pinapalabas nila policy ng gobyerno na magsinungaling.
Actually, I want to ask about President Duterte's reaction. What do you guys make of his reaction? Because from the very beginning, the government has been saying, the police, the military, even officials in the executive department, they have been saying na wala silang kinalaman doon. And last week, I interviewed Secretary Harry Roque, and he said, okay, maybe personnel of the police or military handled these pages, pero hindi siya government controlled. Kumbaga, individually controlled lang siya. Sabi niya, just like he would have his own social media pages. Pero ito yung reaction ni President Duterte. He's telling Facebook, if the government cannot espouse or advocate something that is for the good of the people, then what is your purpose in my country? Now, a lot of people are interpreting this to say na parang inaamin ni President Duterte na may kinalaman nga talaga yung government dito sa mga pages na ito. Red, what do you think?
Yeah, nag-agree ako dun sa sinabi ni Gemma, no, na para siyang implicit na admission na state-sponsored yung mga ganitong activity. Pero I'll go back to what I said earlier, no. Merong attack on our sovereignty from China-based accounts. So how do we interpret this? Kasi kung ako kunyari yung nasa government, matatakot ako dito and maa-alarm ako na tinatry i-manipulate yung Filipino people by a foreign entity. So by not mentioning this and by telling Facebook na yung mga nangyayaring inauthentic behavior ay pabor sa bansa, sinasabi ba nila na yung pag-manipulate ng Chinese-based accounts is good for the country? Like, hindi dapat ito yung case unless, of course, merong agreement yung government natin dun sa mga sinasabi ng mga China fake accounts. And this is something that's very worrisome.
Mm-hmm. Professor Diosa, what's your take on President Duterte's reaction? It's important, I think, yung reaction ni President Duterte, because in a sense he's been threatening Facebook,
I think gaya din ang sabi ni Gemma, they did not admit explicitly sa kanila yun, but they are trying to say na they're just suggesting that they're responsible or it has effects on them or the government's information dissemination. Kasi ito yung on one hand ayaw nila i-admit yung ganung behavior because it's really unacceptable. And for them to say that it's part of the government's information operation. On the other hand, if they were so affected by it, and if they have spent so much for that kind of operation and so affected by it, they will also be, complaining. The thing is, sabi nga kanina, it's Facebook rules that were violated, and we have to recognize that. And dapat i-admit nila yung ano ba talaga yung information strategy nila and why did they resort to it. And then kasi they're sending mixed signal. Kung talagang they're truthful, they're transparent, and they observe yung decorum in public engagement, bakit naman they would allow such kind of behavior, such kind of information dissemination na unacceptable on many counts sa public, sa political groups, and also sa Facebook.
Pero Gemma, ayaw ngang aminin, ano? And in fact, sinasabi na because Rappler is involved in this, because Verifiles is involved in this, na sinasabi na Facebook's actions have been partisan. And to cite an example, yung recent post ni General Parlade, he's saying that Maria Ressa, who's the head of Rappler, of course, is blatantly anti-government. So, sabi, what can you expect out of Facebook if they're working with these very partisan organizations?
Let me stress one thing. Rappler has never been anti-government. Rappler has actually worked with government in the past, and we tried to work with this government also in various yung mga mga initiatives that are well-meaning, yung yung disaster preparedness. A lot of people in government are worth working with because they are they're professionals. Pero there's a big difference between people in the administration and people in government. Ang gobyerno ay hindi lang yung mga tao na partisan na yung na dala ng ng administrasyong ito. Malawak ang gobyerno ng Pilipinas, hindi lang sila yan. So it's important to point that out because medyo nakakalimutan natin yun Nakakalimutan palagi yun. So pangalawa, I mean, paano naging pinoint out nga ni Red, 'di ba? In this takedown, you're talking of Chinese influencing Chinese accounts trying to influence Philippine discourse. Shouldn't that be something of concern for the military that's that's currently engaged in that every now and then nagkakaroon sila ng concern doon sa sa West Philippine Sea, 'di ba? Shouldn't that be a concern for the military? We are Barn these past years ang laki ng intel funds ng gobyerno, bilyon. Bakit hindi natin to nalalaman? They have money to investigate this if this is what they think and they have funds. They have enough resources for this that's the statement that we just released kanina. They have enough resources to address to address the rebellion.
So kumbaga, dapat kung hindi talaga linked sa gobyerno itong mga accounts and pages na ito, ang sinasabi ninyo, Red, dapat sila yung una nagreklamo.
Yes, actually yung una kong response dito, dapat matuwa yung government natin dahil a foreign attack on our sovereignty was prevented or halted by Facebook. Kung hindi tinanggal ng Facebook yung coordinated 155 accounts na China, patuloy pa rin tayong mga Pilipino na naiimpluwensyahan yung diskurso natin ng mga hindi naman Pilipino na nagpapanggap lang sila na Pilipino sila. At nakita na natin yung epekto na pwedeng mangyari ng mga malawakang trolls or fake accounts. Halimbawa na lang sa Estados Unidos kung saan mga Russian na fake account yung nag-iimpluwensya sa eleksyon nila. Napatunayan na to hindi lang sa Estados Unidos, sa Mexico, na pwedeng ma-impluwensyahan kung bumoto ba yung karamihan ng tao o hindi, o bumoto para sa isang kandidato o hindi. Nakakatakot tong isipin. At para sa akin, ang pinaka nakakatakot yung nangyari sa Myanmar noong 2017 kung saan nagkaroon ng genocide ng Rohingya. Yung Rohingya genocide nangyari to. Yung military ginamit yung Facebook as a platform to incite massacre. Nakakatakot yung pwedeng mangyaring effects, and hindi naman tayo isolated na case yung Philippines, no? Hindi na imbento bigla yung coordinated inauthentic behavior last week lang. Matagal na tong nangyayari, matagal na tong tinatanggal ng Facebook. At usually, maganda yung mga nagiging resulta dahil na pipigilan nga itong mga ganitong pagmamanipula. At nangyari na sa Pilipinas, ang dapat gawin ng gobyerno ay tulungan pa yung Facebook at mag-commit na tanggalin lahat ng mga ganitong tipo ng activity dahil nakakasama ito sa ating health, sa ating democracy, at sa madami pang ibang bagay.
Pero Professor
Okay.
Labiste, matagal na ito, no? I
Yes,
mean,
pwede
parang
magkwento
tinipik
na
tayo 2016 election.
yes. Actually, nung maybe 2019, I would say 2019, na-observe ito ng mga fact checkers. Remember in 2019 elections, mayroong check.ph. Ito yung collaborative fact-checking project between the media and the universities. Nung eve ng elections ng 2019, may na-observe yung fact checkers ng mga Facebook pages ng police at saka Army Reservists sa Mindanao. Nag-share sila ng information na may 6 party list groups under the Makabayan bloc na disqualified. That was few hours before the voting started. At saka yung mga pages na to ay pinost sa isang page na ang pangalan na Diego Pagbabago at 2 p.m. that day, sinare nila ng 4 hours later, tsaka massively shared na sa police public pages. At saka and later on, it reached the pages of the military reservists in Mindanao. And then, wala namang disqualification yung mga bayan muna party list candidates. So, finak-check to ng check.ph, saka mga member organization ng check.ph. And then, eventually, they took it down. Tinanggal nila. And kasi nagkalat na sa media, tinatanong ng mga reporters na yung COMELEC na sabi ng COMELEC, wala kaming dinisqualify na party list candidates. More so yung mga bayan muna party list. And then, but then, one of the posts na went still live during election day was that of Blessed Be Philippines. At saka naka-earn pa rin siya ng likes and share the very day ng voting. At nakita nila na ito pala ay massively shared among the network of police and the Army Reservists and individual groups. And nakita nila it was really meant to take away votes from this party list groups. And nakikita mo talaga na may intention siya to commit harm by denying them of votes and misleading people to believe that hindi sila kasali sa election. And that is for me the 4th days, pinakaunang observation namin ng mga fact checkers on how much inauthentic behavior work in this particular group. Ano ba talaga yung gusto nila? It's just really meant to sabotage certain democratic processes like election or exchange of information.
So is this happening? Is the timing of all this because we are nearing the 2022 election? I've read something. I think it was an analyst from Singapore, basta hindi siya based sa Manila, saying that Facebook is doing this because it doesn't want to be construed, just like it had been before, as being complicit in anything that happens in the elections in 2022. Red, you are nodding your head.
Yes, no. Simula nung nangyari yung Cambridge Analytica data leak scandal, naging mas defensive na yung Facebook about their reputation and their harm that they're causing large groups of populations. Whether Facebook is good or bad for democracies, importanteng pag-usapan to eh. Dahil madaming tao iniisip na definitely good ang Facebook dahil nakakapag-usap tayo ng malaya dito, yung mga services dito hindi binabayaran ng pera. Pero ano yung kapalit nung libreng service na to? Merong mga karapatang katulad ng privacy, katulad ng sovereignty, kunyari pagdating sa elections, na rini-risk natin. So defensive ang Facebook. May elections na mas malapit mangyari sa Estados Unidos at isa pa to sa mga rason dun sa timing ng pagiging defensive nila. Yung nangyari sa Brexit, yung nangyari katulad nung minention kanina ni Gemma, yung twin mark, madaming beses na silang nahuli na lacking dun sa responsibility nila to monitor their platform and they're very, very defensive. And they care about their reputation, of course. Dapat talagang questionin natin yung responsibility ng Facebook dito. Kasi so far, tinitignan natin yung responsibility ng mga troll account. Tinitignan natin yung government. Pero yung mismong Facebook, I will argue na malaki yung responsibility nila dito. We need to take them to account. We need to ask for accountability from Facebook themselves.
So now, Gemma, what we're
Mm-mm.
seeing right now is Facebook taking responsibility. Are we seeing a turning
Um,
point?
to a certain degree. So, Rappler, again, we're a third party fact check partner of Facebook, but we push back every now and then kasi may mga things na nakikita kaming hindi nila ginagawa. So, it's always been a very we call it critical collaboration. We call ourselves frenemies. More because may times na nanggigigil ako sa kanila, may times naman natutuwa ako sa kanila. So in this case, like actually I was happy that they acted on this particular case kasi napaka-worrisome talaga nung impact ng network na to. And then just want to add this, yung China network, napansin yan, actually, well, Facebook naman never really explained how they found this network kasi hindi to kasama doon sa natingnan namin. Pero this specific network apparently was also involved in certain conversations in the US. So ang feeling ko doon nag-umpisa, and I don't know for sure. I'm sure this should be something Facebook should confirm. But it looks like nag-umpisa doon, and then na-trace back na ito yung mas malaking involvement nila dito, yung ganun. So medyo it was actually interesting na and I think it's also related to the fact that there's US elections. They're really under pressure right now na medyo not to be used for manipulating populations.
So far, Red, I'm just gonna go back to the process, since you mentioned ni Gemma na paano nga kaya nila na-detect yung mga China accounts na ito. So if you can just walk us through this process of detecting coordinated, inauthentic behavior. Medyo, I think it might be a bit technical. I'm not sure. Is it technical? Is it
Well, they
journalistic?
don't really they don't really disclose so much about the process, because to the extent that they disclose details, that will help people who want to subvert the process or circumvent that kind of detection. But what we do know is that meron silang mga internal na mga tao na tumututok dito, na naghahanap constantly sa mga coordinated inauthentic behavior. At dito na sa nakita nating halimbawa na recent, tumatanggap din sila ng tips from third-party researchers. Katulad na lang ng Rappler na nag-contribute, and malaki yung pag-mention ng DFR o Digital Forensics Research Lab dun sa role ng Rappler, dun sa natuklasan nila. So Facebook works with these groups of fact checkers like Rappler, Verifiles, and also people who monitor inauthentic behavior, katulad nga ng DFR Lab. Pero ang other side nito, madaming nangyayari sa Facebook na dapat talaga nating i-criticize Katulad na lang kunyari ng data brokers. So, madaming mga data brokers na nagko-collect ng madaming impormasyon tungkol sa mga citizens na hindi nako-collect ng Facebook through its platform. And binibili ng Facebook itong data na to para mapunan yung mga gaps or mga butas dun sa impormasyon nila tungkol sa mga individual. Kaya magaling ang Facebook na makahuli ng inauthentic behavior dahil madami silang alam tungkol sa bawat tao na gumagamit sa platform nila. At kahit yung mga hindi gumagamit sa platform nila, madami din silang alam tungkol dito. So para tong double-edged sword, ang dami nilang kinakalap na data na pwedeng gamitin for bad reasons or for manipulation, pero dahil din sa dami ng data nila, madali nilang masabi kung merong authentic or inauthentic behavior na nangyayari. So just to recap yung process, meron silang internal detection team, and meron silang tinatanggap from external third parties. Pagka may credible na tip, bine-verify nila ito, pinag-aaralan. And pagkaroon na nakakuha na sila ng enough evidence, nagde-decide sila and pinopost nila dun sa Facebook newsroom yung discovery nila. And of course, they take down the accounts na involved.
So it sounds like it would be easy for Facebook.
Can I
Siguro-
say something?
Oh, go.
Yes.
Totoo yung sinabi ni Gemma at saka ni Red na yung Facebook kasi, they try to be transparent but only to some extent. Kasi sabi ni Red may mga data brokers. Pero dun sa report kasi ng forensic group na yon, sinabi nila na mayroon ding advertising na nangyayari. I mean, the groups that are behind the coordinated inauthentic behavior also paid for advertising dun sa Facebook. Yung digital advertising kasi makes fake news financially attractive. Kasi yung nag-create siya ng business dun sa platform na yun. The platforms earn while yung nag-produce ng fake news will also considered as their job to produce false information which they could turn into a commodity which they can also sell. Parang yung business proposition na lang. And wala na yung ethical na part doon or the moral aspect of it. It's just commodity. Information is commodity, whether that information may harm people or would create confusion, wala silang pakialam. Some people, it's true that some people struggle to identify what is false information, what is fake news, because they thought if the information is popular, there might be some truth to it. So this is the harm of that, yung that idea that information is commodity and they don't really care because it brings in money that's circulating around the platform or the persons that are involved in the creation of the information.
And in this, in the Philippine case, is this kind of operation overwhelmingly linked to the government, or is it all sides of the political spectrum? Because when we're talking about troll farms, for example, they're always, accusing the government of running troll farms, but it's very seldom that we hear the opposition, for example, as just one alternative group, as running these troll farms. And of course, President Duterte has already admitted running these, not during the election campaign, but he did deny that the government has been running troll farms after his election. So, pero sa nakikita ninyo, yes, Jam.
Siguro, I would start with this. Government has enough resources if it thinks that the opposition has troll farms. And they did, there was this one time na, remember that yung may lumabas na video about, Paulo Duterte? Tapos they went all out and then they used the powers of government to go after that person and to go after his supposed handlers, diba? So if you're saying na okay, government is this is this something na done by both sides? Government has enough resources to go after that. To go after people, to go after critics, and we saw that during the during the lockdowns na immediately after na enact yung batas na yung Bayanihan to Heal as One Act, 'di ba may fake news provision 'yon, then they had people, they got people, they actually went after people na na supposedly for posting false information, posting false claims. So let's disabuse ourselves with this idea that this is this is an equal, everybody is on equal footing here. There's a matter of resources to use to do this thing, and ang laki ng resources ng government both in terms of personnel and money. Okay? And ang laki ng resources ng Office of the President. Ang pinakamalaking budget for Intel na hindi natin alam kung saan napupunta ay ang Office of the President. So, I mean, for us to say that this is an equal, everybody's on equal footing is disregarding that very important fact. The other thing is, we've been documenting this thing, so we start in 2016, precisely because we were trying to understand it. And what we note and we did take note of yung mga like moving into the 2019 elections. We were looking at the use of social media by the various candidates, and we really saw that ang laki ng use ng ng ilang mga allies ng gobyerno, ng allies ng presidente of social media. So yung yung number of pages na and groups na pro Duterte na na-document namin, libo-libo, tens of thousands. And who has who has that kind of resources? If they say that both opposition and that opposition also has that, wouldn't they have already uncovered that? 'Di ba? May NBI. NBI has a cybercrime division. So tell me, anong ginagawa nila?
So Red, objectively speaking, from a technological point of view, klaro ba yung ebidensya that the government has been and is running troll farms?
Yes, dito sa recent na case na to, definitely it's very clear. Meron ngang mga information dito na medyo it's a bit tricky paano nila nakuha yung impormasyon. Halimbawa na lang, yung isang inaakusahan nila na taga-military na siya daw yung admin ng mga private group. And na-link nila itong private group na ito dun sa mga fake group na involved. And now, if this is a private group, paano nalaman ng Facebook kung ano yung pinag-uusapan within that private group? Of course, they're the owners of that platform. Hindi naman encrypted end-to-end yung communication dito. So pwede nilang silipin kung gusto nila. And mukhang meron ngang nangyayaring pagsisilip dito. And yung post doon sa site ng Facebook and doon sa Medium na blog post ng Digital Forensics Research Lab, I welcome everyone to read it. Medyo simple naman yung pagkaka-explain nila dito, pag-link-link ng mga bagay-bagay. And ang lahat na to, pwedeng i-verify ng kahit sino na meron silang clear na story. And I welcome yung sinasabi ni Cayetano, kunyari, na dapat nating pag-aralan yung mga ganitong kaso kung meron ba talagang harm na nangyayari. Dahil tingin ko, meron talagang harm na nangyayari. Klarong-klaro dito, klarong-klaro dun sa intervention ng China dun sa discourse natin. And etong coordinated inauthentic behavior, by the way, baka magkaroon ng idea yung mga audience natin na mostly political to. Actually, commercial yung pinaka-primary use ng mga fake account, coordinated inauthentic behavior. Tinatry nilang pasikatin ang isang produkto o ang isang celebrity sa pamamagitan ng paggamit ng mga malawakang fake na account at sinungaling na behavior. So mostly commercial. And ayaw din natin na yung population, naloloko tayo, bumibili tayo ng product na hindi naman maganda or gamot. No? COVID-19 is going on and information saves lives. So we need good information for the health of our population and also for our democracy.
Professor Diosa, Red mentioned Speaker Cayetano, of course, and may mga talks na dapat daw magkaroon ng legislative investigation, and both in the House and the Senate, by the way. Senator Bato de la Rosa filed a resolution asking for a Senate investigation into this, and he said that it's not just about freedom of speech, but it's also about peace and security, because yung mga advocacy nga daw na, for example, yung Hands of Our Children, which is an advocacy apparently against young people being recruited into the NPA. Do you agree na dapat magkaroon ng investigation? Some people are saying kasi na, well, let's have this investigation para mabuksan na lahat, para makita na kung ano ba talaga yung nangyayari, sino ba talaga yung involved dito, responsible dito sa coordinated inauthentic behavior na ito. Some people saying naman, well, if it's an investigation in Congress and in Senate, then wala tayong maaasahan.
I agree with sinabi kanina ni Gemma at ni Red na if there are groups or there are sectors in society or the Philippines na commit ng crime, and then the legislation is needed, for example, to go or no, the Congress would need to craft legislation to go after this person. Dahil function nila yun eh. Wala tayong magawa doon. In other words, it's well within their function to look at what's going on in society, create a public hearing, and come up with laws through, of course, consultation. So kung nakita nila na mga minors ay ina-abduct or kinukuha ng mga groups, ideological man yan or commercial man yan, yung kanilang intent or whatever, well, they can go after them because, as Gemma said, they have enough resources. They have the laws to back them up. Wala tayong magawa doon at saka trabaho nila yun. So, in other words, they can create public hearings and public consultations on that. There is nothing wrong with that. And yung sabi ko lang kasi, yung nangyayari ngayon is that yung nakikita natin dun sa social media, nag-increase yung level at saka yung distribution ng hateful speech. Nakita namin kasi what are hateful speech? Ito yung mga nag-atake sa personal na dignidad, and it also dehumanizes groups. Nag-incite siya ng discrimination at nag-create siya ng social wedge at nagka-impute ng crime. Tapos in-accuse mo yung isang tao na terorista, in-accuse mo yung isang tao na labag sa gobyerno, dapat hulihin, and things like those. These are the kinds of speech that creates or advocates hostility against certain groups of people just because they criticize the government or they have political beliefs which hold the government to account. Ito yung problema natin na the government or Congress should also have a look at. At kailangan din nila mag-create ng public hearing on that if they want to. But the thing is, all these things are going on in social media, and it creates a sort of a pollution na yung mga tao ay would easily be put into position na nag-polarize na sila, na ayaw na nila maniwala sa critical engagement and conversation. Lahat ay us against them na kaagad. And that is actually creating a wedge, a social wedge in our country.
Gemma, how do you think Philippine Congress would investigate Facebook, an American company? I mean, some people say that would be so difficult because even the U.S. Congress investigating Facebook and Amazon, that took a long time for them to be able to do that, and they really also couldn't do much about Facebook itself, about Mark Zuckerberg himself. So I mean, some people saying shouldn't the Congress investigate those behind the fake accounts instead and not investigate Facebook?
Yung ano din, I'm in agreement with Red that Facebook also deserves scrutiny. Okay, yung the way it makes its policies, the way it enforces or does not enforce its policies, kailangan din yun scrutinize. Kasi may while Facebook is a private entity, it has it's performing a vital role already. It's importanteng i-stress ito, Barn, na at no time in history were so many individuals, so many human beings connected through a single fabric. Okay? 2 billion users, over 2 billion users. Imagine that, connected through a single fabric, is a single account. So talagang medyo nakakabahala yon kasi napakadami, pangalawa global to. And dito na naglalaro yung public conversations natin na ang akala natin ay public, like malaya, pero actually there are algorithms there that make it actually make that that filter that conversation and tend to contribute to the polarization. So, importante pa rin yun na tingnan yun. Pero, mali yung tinitingnan ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas. Ang tinitingnan nila, yung Facebook na, the fact that Facebook did this takedown, but it's not, ang dapat nilang tingnan, bakit may mga ganitong ginagawa ang mga ahensya ng pamahalaan who should be looking out for their citizens. At ang dapat nilang tinitingnan ay bakit hindi alam ng gobyerno na merong Chinese network that's intervening in local conversations, di ba? Medyo mali yung focus.
Pero ang tanong, hindi nga ba alam ng gobyerno?
You asked that question, di ba?
Red?
Di ba? I mean,
allegedly, hindi nila.
Mali yung direksyon nung pagtanong. Ano yung, hindi ba ang mga public hearings na to at ang Kongreso ay hindi dapat, they're not so beholden to the president. They're supposed to be representatives of the people. They should be asking for the people. Diba? They should be asking in behalf of this country's citizens, why is it that this Chinese network is intervening in local conversations within the pages that are connected to my daughter, the daughter of the president, diba? Why is it that Facebook, that there are these pages that are apparently managed by military personalities and are posting really degrading, demonizing content and false content about individual citizens and calling them terrorists. So, yun yung isang bagay na dapat tinitingnan ng mga representante ng mga tao.
Okay, we're running over time already, so I'm going to ask one last question, and if you can all give a quick answer to the question, because of course the ultimate threat here is that President Duterte could ban Facebook in the Philippines, and we all know that Filipinos are, I think, one of the top 10 Facebook users in the world. So, but with what's been happening over the last few or several years, would it be so bad if Facebook were banned in the Philippines? Maybe we'll start with Professor Diosa.
I agree with Red and Gemma that we should hold Facebook accountable and subject Facebook to political judgment. And we want Facebook to be more transparent in its dealings with anyone, starting with a single user down to countries or societies or nations. Pero gusto ko din, we should also hold the government accountable sa ginagawa niyang information operations now that we know that the pages and accounts that were taken down have links to the military, and hindi ganun kadali magsabi na wala kaming pakialam kasi there are evidences, there are proofs to show that the government is actually linked to these groups and actually we're encouraging coordinated and authentic behavior. So I think we should make Facebook and this government accountable for their actions in spreading, the platforms as being the habitat where this disinformation is happening, and the government, which is the agent for where this disinformation is coming from.
Red, what if Facebook were banned in the Philippines?
So Facebook is such a huge entity. It's not just simply a place where you post cute photos and connect with your family. It's become a public utility now, and that's becoming more obvious because of COVID-19. When disasters happen, the government does rely on tools like Facebook to communicate with the people. So there are some good things. There are many good pages, many good advocacy groups that happen. Pero meron ding mga masasamang bagay na naidudulot yung Facebook, katulad na lang yung paglabag sa mga karapatan nating digital. Meron tayong mga privacy rights na nakasaad sa Data Privacy Act na I believe na clearly linalabag to ng Facebook dapat tignan ng government yung mga harm na nagagawa nitong paglabag sa mga privacy and other digital rights natin. So it's a mix of things. It's not a simple answer. Pero dapat nating pag-isipan ng mas maigi yung sagot na ito. And I would hate for Facebook to be banned for the wrong reasons. Like if they're banned because they somehow are critical of the government, that's bad. If they're banned because they violate the privacy rights of citizens, I would be more amenable to that. So I'm still kind of on the fence about this.
What about Gemma, the implication on the the principle of freedom of expression, freedom of the press? Because when we talk about ABS-CBN, for example, the shutdown, di ba? Sinasabi lagi ng gobyerno yan na, well, it's just an isolated case. It's just ABS-CBN. It's not about freedom of the press. So when they shut down Facebook, but if they shut down Facebook, could we say na, well, Facebook lang yan. Wala naman yan implication sa freedom of expression natin, sa freedom of the press, freedom of speech.
Okay, so first of all, there are other channels, not just Facebook. There are so many channels out there, but Facebook is, as Red pointed out, is so big in this country. I think like everybody's in it. And what's significant about it is families are connected through Facebook. So that's really significant. Now, yung question ng press freedom, actually, ang nakakaano dito is that yung di ba this was raised, people raised this in the hearings in relation to the ABS-CBN diba? ABS-CBN franchise, and then they said that's not press freedom. But now clearly the fact that this is connected, parang their objection to Facebook is connected to content, already reinforces that notion that this administration, I want to call this administration, is not equivalent to government. This administration is so intent in stifling dissent. And that is even more clearly now, given their reaction to this medyo na nagiging mas klaro siya ngayon. Kumbaga, kung pabor ka sa amin, okay lang, pero kung hindi ka pabor sa amin, hindi, 'di ba? So it did not act when people were being attacked. When people were being harassed online, it didn't act, but it is acting because it sees that merong mga may mga tinake down na pabor sa kanila, 'di ba? Medyo medyo nakakabahala 'yon. Is it so bad? I don't know. I mean, I haven't really thought of a life right now outside of Facebook, 'di ba? I mean, but maybe it's worth exploring. I don't know. But I would like to know, 'di ba? This government or this administration, again, there is a huge network out there, a huge propaganda network that is connected, or at least is supporting this administration on Facebook, and it is more pervasive on Facebook than in the other social media networks. Medyo mas sila doon, mas kalat sila doon, 'di ba? Would it benefit them also? I don't know. I mean, do they really want to do this? Make my day.
Make my day. What a fitting statement to end this discussion. I miss the original Facebook. I was one of the first users of Facebook kasi nung 2006 I was studying in the States, and nung una yung Facebook, kailangan mo ng college email sa US for you to have a Facebook account. And boy, was it different back then. It was just about connecting with your friends and with your classmates in the university. Wala, parang lifetime ago. Time ago.
Yeah, life was different then.
All right, okay. So we're gonna have to leave the discussion at that. I hope that we were able to give clarity to a lot of the confusion around this issue. I'm sure that there's still a lot of questions. So Hopefully, we can have another discussion on this. But thank you so much to our three guests for joining us tonight. And thank you so much to everyone who tuned in to our Facebook page for this discussion tonight. Again, my name is Barnaby Lo. This is Viewpoint. Now you know.
Okay. Thank you.